Hey everybody, this is Jason out in Colorado. Today I'm going to show you how to make some charcoal. My last video I showed you how to make char cloth, but we're going to do the same thing, only we're going to use natural resources you find out in the woods. We're going to use punk wood today, or punky wood, to make this charcoal, and I'll show you how to do it. In my last video, you probably saw me how to make char cloth using cotton. Charcoal is basically the same process, only you're going to use resources you find out in nature. So I went out ahead of time and harvested a couple pieces of punk wood from the forest behind me. Now you might ask, what is punk wood? Punk wood is rotted wood that's kind of spongy. You don't want it broken down and to where it crumbles in your hand, but just softer wood. And it takes a spark really well once you process it. So I'm going to show you some punk wood here real quick, and then we'll show you what to do with it. Okay, so here's some punk wood. In one of my previous videos, you probably saw me harvesting some fat wood with the resin in it. This is the wood that's all around it in that old rotten stump, this piece right here. You can see I can break it apart with my hand. Now, I've never used this stuff before on making charcoal before, so I'm not really sure how well it's going to work. So I'm a little curious, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. I have used wood like this before though. This is nice soft wood. You can see that this is breaking apart easier. Now this is deteriorated quite a bit, maybe more than I normally use, but I'm going to go ahead and use it. I have used this stuff before. It does take a spark really easily, but it burns up really quick. So if you can find stuff that's a little bit harder, like this right here, this is a harder punk wood. It's not crumbly. You see this stuff just crumbles apart in my hand. This stuff doesn't crumble the same way. It's a little bit harder. So I'm gonna use all three types. You know, this is more solid, this is a solid piece, and this is a really crumbly, old, rotted piece. All of them have a bit of moisture in them, but we're going to cook that moisture out. All right, so if you didn't watch my video on how to do char cloth, this is the next piece that we're going to need. We need a tin can. You can use an Altoid can, anything really. You just need a can that's going to be, you'll be able to put in the fire. And you're going to poke a hole in the top of this can. This allows the smoke or the gases to come out while this stuff smolders and burns inside. It doesn't really burn. It's not a big huge flame. It's just gonna kind of ignite like a hot ember would, and it's gonna stay inside this can, and because it doesn't have a lot of oxygen in here, it's not gonna burst in flame. Next thing you're gonna need is a fire source. If you're out in the woods, chances are you're gonna have a campfire. You might have a Coleman stove. You could do it at home with a Coleman stove or your camp grill. Don't do this in your house because you're going to get smoke coming out of here. You're going to smoke up your house. But we're going to break off bits of this punk wood and put it in this can and then throw it on the fire. So once I get some of this stuff in here, I'll get back to you. All right, so I got some of that wood in there. You know, I got the larger stuff here. This is pine, and this stuff here I believe is aspen. This is the really brittle stuff. And then underneath, I've got some of the harder stuff. So I'm going to put this lid back on it. Make sure it's on there good and tight. And then I'm going to come over to my fire. Got some nice hot coals. There's a nice bed of coals right there. And I'm going to set this guy on top of there and just let it sit there and smolder. With the wood in there, this is probably going to take a little while, but smoke is going to start pouring up out of that hole. I'm probably going to add a little bit of more wood around this, not too much more, but a little bit to generate a little bit more heat. And then we're going to cook that rotted wood, that punk wood inside of there, and it's going to, all the moisture is going to go out, and it's going to prep it so that when we do need to get a fire easy, it's going to take a spark really well. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little bit of smoke starting to come out of there. It's kind of windy today, so it's kind of hard to see. It's blowing the smoke away pretty quickly, but I can see the smoke. But we can give it some time, and then I'll come back to you. All right, so it's definitely just a few seconds later, it's definitely producing smoke now that you can see. So that's probably going to take, you know, several minutes for this to all to cook through. I'm probably going to leave it on there for about 5 minutes or so. That fire's pretty hot. I don't want to melt my camera, so I'm backing up. But once that smoke stops pouring out so much, I'm going to take it off the flame. So we'll give it some time and I'll be back. Okay, so our wood has stopped smoldering a lot. You can see there's very little smoke coming out of there. So I'm going to pull it off the flame. Obviously that's going to be hot, so you're going to, you know, have some tongs or some good leather gloves to get it off of there. I'm just going to sit it right here real fast. All right, so I'm going to let that cool down. It's really hot. I don't want to take that lid off right away. I'm going to let that can sit there until it's cool to the touch, and then we can pop it off. Oh, one last thing. We kind of want to snuff out the oxygen. So I'm going to put a coin on there to keep oxygen from getting in there. You could use a nail, the nail that you use to poke that hole, or whatever it takes to cover that hole. Now, so while that cools, charcoal is obviously something you're going to prep ahead of time. You have to have a fire going to make the charcoal. So you're not going to make charcoal so you can get another fire going while you're out here. So you do this while you're sitting around the campfire at night. Maybe you're moving, you're hiking through the woods and you want an easier way to start a fire next time. Maybe you had a really difficult time getting a fire going with your ferro rod or your flint and steel, or your only option was to use a bow drill at the time. So you make it easier for you next time to get a fire going by prepping this charcoal. So this is something you do advance before you head off into the woods or you head off into your next destination. So we still got our tin is cooling off here. A few more minutes and I should be able to pop that lid off. If you pop it off too soon, there's a potential that charcoal could ignite into flames and then you just ruin the whole process. So just be patient. It only takes 3 or 4 minutes for it to cool off enough for you to touch it. So just gonna wait, and when it's ready, I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so it took no time at all. This is cool to the touch. I'm gonna take my quarter off and then we'll pop off this lid. It's stuck on there, of course. Here's our charcoal. This was the pine, this was the really rotted aspen, and I think this was the other harder aspen. So pine, rotten aspen, and the harder aspen. So that's what it looks like. I think it's set on there for maybe 4 minutes. You could keep adding stuff to this, adding new wood to this, and just keep this fire tin all the time. But this is really good stuff to have. I'm gonna go grab my my ferro rod, my flint and steel, and I'll show you what it looks like for taking a spark. All right, so here's our charcoal that we made. The wind's blowing, so it's kind of blew some of it out and some of it disintegrated. That's the part why you would use a harder piece of wood rather than using that really rotted punk wood. But I'm gonna use my ferro rod to get this ignited, and then what I would do is this won't actually ignite, burst into flames, but you're gonna get a little coal going, and then you're gonna use that coal and you're gonna transfer it into like a tinder bundle, a bird's nest, something like this. So let me hit this with a spark, this charcoal, and see what happens. All right, so that spark created that, and then I can use that to transfer into this tinder bundle. There you go, got a flame going. Now you see probably that some of that's burning in there. We don't want to waste all that. So we're going to take our lid and put it over the top and use our coin again and cover that up. And that's going to take away all that oxygen, and that charcoal should go out. Now next time we need a spark, sorry I got some in my mouth. Next time we need a spark or a flame, we can reuse this over and over and over again. So that's it. That's how you make charcoal. Pretty simple process. You can use wood that you find out in nature. Same process as char cloth, only char cloth you need the cotton, and you would get that at home. But again, this is something you prep ahead of time. You're not going to be doing this in a survival situation where you need fire right away. You're not going to be walking around looking for punk wood. You do this so that you're prepared and you're ready to go. That way, when you do get in a situation, you got something that'll easily get a fire going. But that's it for today. Hopefully you learned something. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.